Welcome back to the CHG podcast, everybody.
What's up?
Hey, guess what episode this is?
69.
69. All right.
I just like the number. I don't know.
I mean, it's a good number.
Why
It's a good number.
it's significant.
It's a Jimi Hendrix
Is
song.
Is it because they fit perfectly? Is that
They do.
why everybody likes that
They
number?
connect. And
the
harmony.
The head of one kind of fits at like the bottom of the other. Is that
Yeah,
like?
that's kind of how that works.
Okay.
Anyway, so we're going to get right into it, all jokes aside, because David's home, beautiful state of Texas, is having a storm, and he might have his internet shut down. So we're going to try to get through this.
We had a shooter-sized marble hail yesterday. That was fun.
There you go. It's good old Texas. Anyway, so we're getting right into it, what we're playing. So mine hasn't changed since last week. I'm still playing the Moto Energy Supercross 3. It's still what it is. I'm scared because I have looked into the next 3 games, and apparently they get harder. I don't know how, but they're getting harder and harder, and or the trophy list is getting worse and worse in the sense of grind. And it's already needlessly bit grindy already. Now, not as bad as WRC. That's like ultimate racing car grind, but this is more boring, I want to say. But whatever, it is what it is. But Watch Dogs. Okay, I have more to say about Watch Dogs. So I'm glad. I came prepared today, okay? So I wrote down a list of the things that I like and the things that I don't like about this game. Now, granted, again, this is the PS2 version, so keep that in mind. It might, when I play the PS4 version, which I bought today, when I play that, I'll give you guys an update. But anyways, so what I do like.
I'm glad we're getting an update on this almost 10-year-old game.
Yeah, very important. So, the NPC interactions are actually sometimes impressive. They're very organic. Like, I was walking I think I finished the mission. I was just walking around the street, and a car crash just happened. Like an actual regular-ass car crash. Like a fender bender happened. No. Fender bender. Yeah. And the people came out of their cars and started like talking to each other and all that shit. And they didn't do anything beyond that. But I was just like, oh, snap. Okay. All right. It gives a sense of liveliness to the city, which is impressive. Because you hear usually stuff like GTA usually does stuff that organically with their NPC. So it was nice to know that they were able to do that with this game. And not only that, when you're doing chases, the people you're chasing, they will make erratic turns, and despite me hating that just because I just want to hit you, like it is like you gotta give it props. Like they don't just follow a set path. It is like you never fucking know what they're gonna do. And with a city as dense as Chicago, with all these little tiny little alleyways and shit that they will take them like these small little pathways, it's like, oh gosh. But I got to give them props for that. It is very organic and very not by the numbers as far as like their trajectory. A lot of costumes for Aiden to wear in the store. You have to buy them all, but like there's like almost needlessly like so many. There's at least like over 20 of them. None of them do anything. There are some you can buy that do give you a perk or two, but the regular ones in game do not do anything to you. But they're still cool. Like I put one on. It's like a whiteout one. It's pretty dope. But that was nice. I like stuff like that when it allows you to change up your costumes. I do appreciate that. The city does feel dense. It is small, and you get reminded of that all the time with like the racing stuff you have to do. You can get to like a whole nother part of like you go from north to south of the city in like a couple minutes, like on a motorbike or whatever. It's not big, but there is a lot of density within it, a lot of different neighborhoods. You get like more affluent section of it, then you get like the slums and like the more poverty level parts of it. So they did do a good job of at least making the city feel alive and not dead. So I will give them that. And also, you can get a grenade launcher right away as long as you have the money for it. And money flies in this game. You can get a grenade launcher.
You can just steal money from people.
True, yes. And you don't even need to get like the boosted version of it to get lots of money either, because I didn't even get it for a while.
You just walk around the city and just
yeah, because there's so many people you steal, like it's non-stop people you steal from if you want to do that. And so yeah, you get money hella quick. I got a grenade launcher, which because I was having a real trouble with like this criminal convoy side mission, which is one of the 3 main kind of side missions. I was getting really upset about it because I was like, you need to take out the cars, but it's not easy to do that in a car. And you can't shoot outside of the. You can't be like Wheelman and come outside and shoot them while you're driving. This isn't Fast and Furious. You can only use the car to hit other cars and hopefully take them out. But it doesn't. This is not Demolition Derby, so they don't go down in like one hit. And so I was like, this is just taking too damn long. And I looked online, and they're like, just get the grenade launcher. I was like, what? You can buy a grenade launcher? It's like, yeah, buy the grenade launcher. I bought that shit. Oh man, beautiful. Just can't. I would wait for them to come to me. Just it was awesome. And then the last thing that I want to say is so there's this like this more collectible style side mission called Invasions, and you have to hack this system, and then it allows you to see. It takes you to some camera somewhere in an apartment building or something, and you have these random people going about their day or doing something, whatever, right? But it's like it's super raw, it's super real, and I actually feel for some of these people's situations because it's so humanized. Because these aren't overblown things. These aren't fantastical things. These aren't like things that would only exist in a game world. These are real shit. Like one of them I came into, and the dude was like on his couch, contemplating suicide. Like he had the gun and everything, and then he even put it to his mouth, and clicked, and I think either it was a blank or there was nothing in it, but it didn't end up working. But I was like, don't do it, dude. Like I was like, no, but like it's so because you only have a limited time for these invasions. I don't know. I haven't timed it myself, but you get maybe like 20, 30 seconds, and then like a bar says like invasion detected. You need to get out. And then at that point you have 10 more seconds or so. But it's so crazy how within these little 30 to 40 second little snippets of these people's lives, I get somehow so invested in them. And I have to give them props for that. Like telling these what I'm calling like mini stories of sorts, of these just everyday people's lives is fascinating. And I really enjoyed it. I'm not done with anyway. I am done with all of them, but I really enjoyed it, and so I want to give props for that. That's all I liked. Here's what I don't like. I said this before. The game doesn't look good, and not just because of the trailer. It doesn't look good even by that time standards. Other open world games, especially on PS3, which I'm playing on right now, doesn't look good. Just gonna move on from that. I said this before already. It has a jack of all trades style gameplay, but it doesn't excel in any of it. It wants to be fucking Forza at one point, then it wants to be Grand Theft Auto at one point, and then it wants to be Splinter Cell at some other point. And it doesn't do any of them well at all. And I don't know why they were going for all this. It should have been more focused. There's just no focus in it. And I hate the fact that it forces you into so many armed like gunfights because you don't take a lot of hits. Even on easy mode, which is what I am on, you don't take a lot of hits because you're not Superman, which makes sense. But don't force me into all these gunfights. Like it's different like with Batman because he has like the plated suit and he can deflect bullets for at least somewhat, right? So he can take bullets. This guy can't take bullets. He is not Batman, even though he thinks he is. So I just find that very annoying, and it's just counterproductive. Speaking of that, I hate the fact that he thinks he's Batman. It's just really annoying. His voice is nice and gravelly, but his whole vigilante shit is so dumb, and I'm like, you were not Batman. It's whatever. Anyways, car collision is really I don't get it. I will feel like I'm about to hit this dude, and all I do was just glide right past him. I don't get it. It is the most weirdest thing I've ever like in any racing game. I've never had this like dodgy of a car collision detection. But it sucks because you're trying to finish missions, hit people, and you don't, and you're just like, what? So it's really annoying. The game, I've heard this before with Ubisoft games, especially nowadays, last several years, they just feel like a checklist, just doing things off a checklist. I've never felt that before I played this game. It absolutely feels like a checklist of just bullshit to do. So now I understand. I understand all you people that complain about this in these open world games nowadays. So that sucks. The side quest payoffs, because some of them some of them actually do have a payoff, like a final mission, which is like an actual full-blown side mission, which is cool. I was like, oh, it's actually building something. I didn't think that was going to happen. Like, it was a collectible style thing, and you get all of them, and it's like, here's a mission to do. And I was like, that's cool. But all they do is just resort it to one of the three main kind of side missions, which is either taking out a gang hideout, doing a criminal convoy, which is just blowing up some vehicles on the way to some destination, or some other racing based thing. So there's no uniqueness to it. So I was like, why did you even bother? There was no point. There's no payoff. There's no real payoff. There's not even a cutscene. There's nothing. So I was like, you did all that for a nothing payoff. So good job, Ubisoft. And then a couple things on the story itself. The two things on the story. So when you start the game, it tells you to take out criminals to build your reputation. That's cool. And then after that, you can just do fucking anything in the game, more or less, like Breath of the Wild style. However, unlike Breath of the Wild style, this game doesn't have the same mission structure like Breath of the Wild or like any Souls game, right? This is based off of like using certain skills in the story missions that you would then do the rest of the side mission stuff, but you could do the side mission things and the collectible stuff before you even touch the main missions. So by the time the main missions do it, well, they've decided to do it this way. If you go to main missions, they could be now telling you how to do stuff that you already done 15 hours ago, and then you're like, it makes the game look really dumb. It's just bad. Like, they finally did it with one of the collectibles where it did not open up until I got so far into the game, and then it was like, now you can get the rest of these in the main mission or in the map. I was like, cool, that's great, that's what I would expect, that's what I want. But the other ones, no, do them right away, and then it tells you later in the game that you can do this. I was like, I already did this. Why are you telling me now? You piece of dummy. And then the last thing is, again, the story. I know people will complain about the story not being much at all. What I'm going to say is the story, it could have been so much better from what I'm getting. I'm only like done with the second act of 5. But like, I feel like they should have so much more anchored in on how Aiden is basically destroying his family. He's so basically a Last of Us 2 style thing, right? Like, how far will revenge take someone, and in how much damage that does along the way, right? I know that was a big center point of Last of Us 2. This game should have done the same thing, because he's so hell bent on taking down the people that instigated the hit on him, which made him in turn lose control, and then his niece died as a result, which he blames himself for too, which is another layer you could easily play on. So hell bent that now his sister's been kidnapped by a dude he used to work with, who is using his sister as leverage to get him to do what he wants him to do. And his nephew, the brother of the niece that he feels that he got killed, was almost abducted. He subverted that and then had him go live or stay with his psychologist or psychiatrist, some mental professional, because the dude, when that happened, the dude shut off. He just stopped talking, became a mute, more or less. Just, that kind of reaction to things like trauma. That's what this kid did as a result. So now he had her go. He had him go stay with her, because he's still out trying to do vigilante bullshit, instead of realizing I just need to stop, right? And so, and the lady's she's getting weary, and so she's literally like, if I don't hear from his mom in soon, I'm calling the police. And now Aiden's just like, oh fuck. I'm like, well, you brought this upon yourself, Aiden. But like, the game narrative doesn't play on that, and I felt that could have been a much more passionate and a much more like, closer to heart and more resonating storyline for this game than what they're doing, which is just this, we're gonna get revenge and shit. But that's Watch Dogs, everybody. Congratulations. David, take the floor.
So I'm just still playing Fallout 4. I'm done with everything. I'm just kind of grinding out loyalty missions from my followers.
Did you finish Far Harbor?
Oh yeah. It was
How'd that
easy.
go? Oh, it was easy.
Easy.
Yeah, because you came in as a god by the time you got there.
I was probably like level 70 when I started it. I have a gun from the Nuka Cola one.
Nuka World, I think it was.
Nuka World one. it's basically like the gun there that you get. Like it's not even like a special gun. It's not a legendary gun or anything. It's the base gun. It's the only gun in the game that uses 7.65 ammo.
I
And it
hated it.
just
I hated when you got that weird ass gun that used a very limited ammo.
yeah.
Oh, I hated that in three
But
in New Vegas.
but you just go to back to Nuka World and you can buy. I mean, it's not the ammo's not expensive, and you can buy it off of the traders in Nuka World. But it melts people. I think so it's like fully automatic, and it does 86 base damage. But then I have the commando perk all the way up, so it does double. So it does like 160
64,
something damage.
164. Gosh damn.
Yeah, yeah. So it destroys. I'm not even using it now, as I'm just trying to like because it's too easy.
That's the gun I need then.
Yeah, so it's fun. I'm thinking about I'll probably give up on this eventually, but I'm trying to like make a big settlement and like make it cool and like multi-layered and have
Oh,
all sorts of stuff in
give
it.
up. Oh, you're gonna give up.
But yeah, I'll probably give up on it.
You're gonna give up.
Especially because Diablo comes out in a little bit, and
Oh, are you a
that's what
Diablo
I'll be
fan?
playing.
You're a
Oh,
Diablo
yeah,
fan?
yeah.
Is that coming to Game Pass?
No, but my brother-in-law Brian bought the game of the like.
So you're gonna
the
game share?
big edition. Yeah, we game share already, so we're gonna be playing that. We're gonna do like a LAN party kind of style thing when it comes out, which is it comes out on the first on
Is it
Thursday.
It's the first,
Or maybe,
oh.
yeah, it comes out on the 1st, so we'll be, I'll be staying at his house Friday overnight before we leave. So I'll be staying up all night playing Diablo and then getting on a plane.
As you should.
So yeah, so that's what I'm doing. Yeah, just waiting for Diablo. I might eventually pick up Tears of the Kingdom, but I haven't.
I was going to ask you if you even had a Switch still. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I still do. It's the same one that I got when they first came out. I haven't upgraded or anything like that.
Hey, you could be a good barometer of if it runs well.
Sure. Yeah, I'll let you know.
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know how much powerful the OLED one is, though. Is it that? Is it? It's not that much powerful than the standard.
It's not. Yeah, I don't think that they're. Yeah, it's not performance wise better at all. It's just that the screen is OLED.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. That's
so it should run fine.
Theory.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sorry I took up 90% of that, but man, Watch Dogs been fucking top of mind, man. I'm almost done with. I'm not gonna say almost. I'm 2/3 done. I'm like 66% done with everything in the game. So, anyways, so we're gonna get right into it. Again, we're gonna skip the middle, anything in the middle. We're gonna get right back into part 2 of continuation of what we talked about last week, which was the Phil Spencer interview with Kind of Funny Games, and we were kind of giving our early thoughts on what we have been, what we had heard and been told. And I caught a couple glimpses of things, but we both watched it, and so now we're going to give actual more candid, not really review, but just our thoughts on what we really feel and think what happened, right? And so this is gonna be interesting take because we're gonna have an Xbox guy and a PlayStation guy conversing on this. So you don't get that every day. I will say this to start off. Props to Phil. I'm not even gonna lie. I already liked the dude anyways. He just seemed like a nice guy. He's a corporate dude, and like you said, his millions and millions, and crying on his Medina mansion or whatever next to Bill.
Which he did say, like he was like, I get paid way too much for what I do.
Job. Which to me, I was like, okay, maybe he's being humble, but my whole thought was saying like, oh, he's just being the nice corporate guy. You know what I mean? Like the cool corporate guy, like the down to earth one. But anyways, regardless, I always liked him. He did feel like at least he had somewhat of a pulse on the people, on the consumers. Not even if it didn't always come across that way in his whatever public statements and stuff like that. But he seemed like a nice guy. He seemed like you could actually talk to him as a consumer, as a fan of Xbox, and give him your grievances. And so I've always respected the guy. But coming off of this interview, I mean, you can argue, yes, like this is like maybe he shouldn't have said all that stuff, but like I don't know. I am personally have always been one where people. I feel like everyone should be speaking more candidly. Like especially when things like this. Like I don't like too much of the, you know, wishy-washy shit and the corporate speak and the smoke and mirrors, stuff like that. Not just with corporate people, just in regular life. People just don't speak how they should a lot of the time. And so I give him props, absolutely. I do think though, yeah, he's ahead of Xbox, but I don't think he has that much clout to where he can literally just free will go on some podcast and just speak whatever. Like, there's no way. So it had to have been approved in some respect. And also, like I said in the interview, some people said like he's been here before and talked candidly about the state of Xbox. Now, I didn't see that interview, but so he's been here before, and if he had gotten in trouble then, he probably wouldn't be here again speaking just as real as he did. So I mean, you could say it was a bad look, but honestly, I feel like Xbox was fine about it. You know, what's his last name? Is it Mandela? Not Satya. I know his first name is Satya, but the CEO of Microsoft, I'm sure like he gave his blessing. Like, so I don't think it was that bad of a look. And honestly, I mean, yeah, he was upset and he was definitely more pessimistic than optimistic. But I didn't think he was as sad as people made him out to be. Like, I was expecting like super sad Phil.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that bad.
I would say he's more just like disappointed. Like he seemed like he has this vision for what Xbox could be, and consistently since he's taken over, he's had hit after hit just come to what his to Xbox and to his vision and what he wants. You know, if we look way back, the first kind of big thing was right after the acquisition of Bethesda. Fallout 76 fucking tanks.
Wait, I'm pretty sure 76 was out well before the merger. I think the merger was 2019. 76 came out like in 2017 or something like that.
Well, we can look that up. But anyways, you have just hit after hit. Things not going his way. I feel like what I kind of noticed was, and this isn't, I don't think this is necessarily a studio thing, because he spoke highly of a bunch of different studios. But I do think, if I had to guess, from the way it sounded to me, is that there are some behind the scenes decisions being made by people other than Phil that he feels is causing these issues.
Getting in the way of things.
Getting in the way of the studio, getting in the way of his vision. Because, like, basically, he's, like, I believe him when he says that he wants to do things the right way. Like, he wants to have games that work. And the interviewers, to their credit, were hitting him fucking hard.
Oh, bro, man. Which is why I said props
the British
to Phil.
Dude. Especially the British dude.
Yeah, he went on like the longest winded question ever. But that's why I said at the start of this, props to Phil, because holy shit. And these are guys, and that's the cool thing I liked about this too, was like, this was an Xbox focused podcast. They called it XCast, and all the people, it was like 3 people who were giving questions. They're all Xbox fans, right? These aren't like Sony and Nintendo haters who are coming in with all the biting questions and trying to undercut them. These are by fans that really care, but they're rightfully being critical. And so for him to have been as candid as he was, like, holy crap, man. Because he could have, because they could have just had like a Xbox is awesome podcast for 40 minutes and been fine. But no, they were like, nah, man, we're going to get at you, but please continue, David.
Yeah, so like, I just think, I feel like there's a few things that he said just about his frustration. Like, he said a couple different times that he was frustrated. And when they were trying to dig deeper, he didn't really elaborate that. And I think that's because I think that those frustrations are coming from above him, or at least from things that he can't overrule.
Yeah.
About quality and when they put games out, when how when they announce games, how far they can push them back and stuff like that. Because the British dude especially was like, hey Phil, you're saying all these, all the right things, that we want to have a game that works, and we want to we have all these games in the pipeline and all that sort of stuff, but the fact is you have released multiple games that have been broken on launch. You have, all these games that you said were coming out, we haven't heard of. Much
the black
less
dude said that part.
Seen.
The black dude said that letter.
Both. Yeah. So as far as and he again was just like, yeah, you're right. Like I don't know, like there's nothing I can say to fix any of that, but I do believe these things. So I think unless he's just lying, which I don't feel like he is, and like they said, they were like, I don't think you're lying, but something isn't working here. Something isn't coming out right. I think it's something he can't control. And the strategy or whatever that the higher ups are wanting him to implement, isn't coming out right. Other than that, I like you said, I give him all props. I think coming out and saying, right now, that he guarantees 60 frames a second for Starfield, he was like, yeah, book it.
I want to be mean because it can't be that hard on the creation engine. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. And also, and with it being this is supposed to be is this one supposed to be an Xbox Series exclusive?
Yeah, Starfield, yeah.
So with
it says at launch, so we'll see.
So with this being at least at launch, the second ever, as far as we know, series exclusive game behind Microsoft Flight Simulator, I would hope, bro, if they can finally just focus with their shitty engine that is probably easy to hit 60 frames per second on for a next gen beast like the Series X. At that point, you can't excuse. And I'm not, again, I said I'm not a frames per second dude, but there's no reason. It can't be that hard. They're not using top in tech here, so it can't be that hard.
Yeah, even if there was just, I think what they need to do to fix all of this thing is just have it be an option. Why is it not an option? They can say, okay, yeah, you use 60 framers. If you want 60 frames a second, it's in the settings. It's in the settings. Go for it. And it might run like shit, and it might be the optimal way to play the game is at 30 frames. But at least they can be like, hey, it's there. We included it because you guys always can say how important it is. So it's there. It runs like shit. And if you play it in 30 frames a second, it runs a lot better. But we give you the option.
Bare minimum on PC.
Yeah, bare minimum on PC.
Has to be on PC.
But even console, just put it in the settings, and if it bricks the game, then they can be like, it's there though.
Actually, what they could do is if it breaks the game, they'd be like, see Microsoft, this is why we can't have the game be for both systems. Because if we could just focus on the Series X, we probably could have got 60 frames.
Which he did. He brought that up a little bit,
he kind of underhanded. He kind of did in the beginning. I caught that.
That we're working with old tech is essentially what he said. That without saying it, he said that they're being handicapped by the systems that they're working with, and he doubled down and we are still, systems are still a huge part, but we're still being handicapped by the older generations.
What I caught that he said towards the beginning was but kind of what you kept talking about. He was saying the reception of these games is a very clear indicator to him and the team that they have to revisit their processes, and not just for their games, but just the business side of everything, which that last gen part might contribute to that, because that is a business strategy. That is a deliberate strategy that they went with. And so I'm sure that is coming up in question. I'm sure devs are probably talking about the same thing too. I'm sure the devs are, Arcane was probably like, why the fuck are we making this game for, like you said, a console that is 10 years old now? It's 10-year-old tech. There's nothing you can't even compare the Xbox, the Xbox Elite. You can't even compare that to the Series X. There's no comparison of what you can do. So why are you making us do this? So that came up. What I will say is another point that I thought was interesting. was, back to what they were talking, the questions that they're being asked about, like you said, like, hey, you said this, say that, but at the end of the day, you guys have been tooting up your services, but we're talking about games. That's what we want, and you don't have a service without games. So, like, you don't have Game Pass without games to give us the, to pass on to us. So they're like, where are the games? And last year, I forgot about this. Last year's showcase, Phil talked about this 12-month plan that was dedicated to giving out high quality first party games on a somewhat regular basis. I guess the plan was at least one per quarter, which that seems pretty ambitious. We haven't seen any of that. We got Halo, but that had been in the works for years beforehand.
Yeah,
so
we got Halo, have Hi-Fi Rush, Redfall.
I guess now we've gotten 2 this past quarter, but like most of the year has been pretty flat. Most of 2022 was a pretty flat.
Yeah, I don't know if they're counting like Age of Empires 2 in that.
Oh, maybe
the remake.
But like the point, what I like that Phil said,
which he did bring up.
Did he? Oh, I must not.
Yeah, he was saying that Age of Empires 2 was being played more on Game Pass than it had anywhere else.
Oh, well, good for Age of Empires. So one thing that Phil said, which I'm so happy he said this. To hear this from an executive was very refreshing. He was saying, like, I'm gonna keep telling you guys about these things that I'm really excited for, that I'm very passionate about and believe in, but until you guys have it in your hands and hopefully are enjoying it, don't listen to what we say. Like, don't believe what we say unless it gets into your hands. He was basically saying, don't get fucking caught up in the hype for bullshit. And I was like, thank you. Because, there's the wider conversation about hype culture in the gaming industry already, and how that can be good and bad. But a lot of times it's been more bad than good. And Phil, his response was, I thought, very productive to that whole conversation, because we don't need any more of it.
On the same note, the whole, like, there's no world that Starfield is 11 out of 10. It was almost exactly what we were talking about. He said that with gaming being so diverse now, you can't cater a game towards everyone. And if you try to cater a game towards everyone, that game is not going to be, creatively good. So that's what he was saying about Starfield, was just that it's not going to be an 11 out of 10 game. It's not going to, he was trying to steer it away from a console winner, a console seller. Is that's just not how games work anymore. Was basically what he said, is that this won't be a game for everyone, but we hope that it. Oof, big thunder. We hope that it will be a good game for those who like that type of game. So I think anybody who reads too far into that to be like, oh, Phil's already saying that Starfield's going to be bad. Like, no, he just says that it's going to be Starfield. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a good Bethesda game. Not everyone likes Bethesda games.
Yeah.
So
I think
don't expect everyone to like Bethesda games.
And I have a lot to say in response to that. So, you could look at case in point, fucking Watch Dogs. I just talked about it. That game was trying to be everything all at once, and it didn't do well. And it did so poorly that's why Watch Dogs 2 didn't sell well, because they were so burned by Watch Dogs 1 that they were like, we're not even going to give Watch Dogs 2 a chance, even though Watch Dogs 2 was superior to 1. But anyways, so yeah, there's a good point. Like, very rarely does a game come out that will be to, like, majority gamers' taste, but also, like Phil was saying, with the landscape of gaming, not only is it, like, that digital landscape, but also there is no more one well-defined, like, there's no one major genre, right? Like, yes, there is Fortnite, but, like, there's so much that exists outside of that too. And so it's not how it was, like, back in the day, or not even that far back in the day, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? When the FPS, that was the genre. You could legitimately say Call of Duty, Battlefield, Halo, maybe Crysis in a distant fourth, but, like, FPS was the genre. There was no doubt about it. No distinction about it, right? It was the genre. More so than, I would say, maybe a battle royale is. And so because of that, that plays into Phil's argument about Starfield will not be the the end all be all game for Xbox, because that doesn't work, in his opinion. That doesn't work in this gaming climate at the moment. But I also want to say, going on to his point about it not being a system seller and everything, and this is kind of why I'm so glad we decided to watch this interview, because it's this is why you want to always read articles and watch videos that people are referencing and talking shit or praise about, because that extra context is so needed. It's so needed. So one thing that they don't mention in your articles that you read about, or maybe some other YouTubers explaining this, is that he brings up a good point that Xbox unfortunately lost, in his opinion, the most important generation to lose. And that was the last generation, which was the beginning of the digital generation. Like the real beginning. I mean, I know we could buy digital games on PS3 and 360, but like where it was really a feasible thing to do. They lost that one. And with people building digital, almost completely digital libraries of games, and with the world being so connected nowadays, it makes it hard for people to go to a different camp because of that. With everything being so connected and having everything so accessible at your fingertips, it's a bit harder. It's more harder than ever been to just jump from one console to another console. And he does bring up a good point. Back in the 90s and 2000s, you could find people who were hanging out with Nintendo, but then the PS2 comes out and they jump ship to Sony, and then 360 came out. People jumped to 360 from Sony, A lot of people did that back in the day, but not anymore. And so he brings up a good point about that. Yeah. And so with that realism and pragmatic point of view, that's what makes him say that Starfield will not be the game that's going to make people that's going to make me want to sell my PS5 and get an Xbox Series X.
He even said, he was like, even if it is an 11 out of 10, that won't make people all of a sudden sell their PlayStation 5 and buy an Xbox. Yeah. And I think like you texted me, I think this plays into my 4D chest thing of Game Pass being everywhere. A digital platform everywhere. Yeah. And I was thinking about it. I don't know why I fucking didn't think about this before.
Oh gosh, here comes.
This strengthens my argument.
We got more chess moves. Prepare, people. He's coming.
I'm going to ask you a question. If you, a PlayStation owner, I mean, you have an Xbox One, but you don't use it.
I don't.
If you signed up for Game Pass and had it on your phone, do you need a console to play the games on Game Pass on your phone?
Sorry, I just heard phone and I just checked out. I thought you were going to say on my PlayStation.
Well, I mean, no, you can't do that yet, but you can play the games on your phone that are streamable without a console. You don't need to buy an Xbox console. All you have to have is Game Pass.
Can they actually run the games?
Yeah. I mean, depending on the phone.
They can run an Xbox One game?
Mm-hmm. Depending on your phone and your connection, yeah. Or if you have a Steam Deck that you have Windows on, you can run the games off of your Steam Deck.
You can run the PC Game Pass. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes more sense, though.
It already is. You already have the ability to play Xbox games without an Xbox console. And again, he doubled down on the system. So I think that they're going to keep on having systems. I don't think that they're not going to make a system. They're going to say, hey, here's a system to play our games on if you want that. But if you have a PlayStation, I think that they're going to drop that. They're going to go to like, hey, if you have a PlayStation, here, play our Xbox games. There might still be console exclusive games. Like, it'll be really a hard pill to swallow to play Halo on a PlayStation. I don't know. I don't foresee them moving that.
I don't find myself upset that Halo is on my PlayStation.
But I meant Microsoft themselves.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So that will be a hard pill for them to swallow, to put Halo, Forza on, on the PlayStation.
I guess this is why the console is still needed, because if you went with your move right? That you've been talking for a while. That let's assume there was no more console, which is Game Pass, and they were able to. Let's say they got it on Sony. Let's just say they got it on the other systems and your TVs and your fucking smart toilets and whatever, right? Everywhere, right? But when it comes to exclusives, it's like, well, what do you do? The only other means then is either a Microsoft phone or PC.
And this is again, this is 5D chess now. Or a premium subscription to Game Pass where you pay an extra
just a different tier, just another tier,
like your PlayStation,
PlayStation. But then at that point though, they would need to have exclusives. So
true, yeah.
They would need exclusives to do that.
I think based off of what Phil was talking about, because again, Phil talked about that you should be able to play your games anywhere you want to play your games. And I just, without saying it, I think that's where it's heading. I don't know, the time frame on when they might do this. I bet that PlayStation doesn't exactly want this either. Because I feel like of the two consoles system makers, that they're still in the console war, kind of trying to beat Xbox. Mindset.
Sony absolutely is. There's no doubt about it.
So I don't know if they'll want to do that to help, because that would extend Microsoft's player base, where maybe Sony feels like maybe they can starve their player base even more in the upcoming years. But I think that's where it's heading. I think it's going to happen eventually, to where at least they have a better relationship with Nintendo. So some Xbox Game Pass thing might come out on Nintendo. Again, you're not going to be able to play the same games on the Switch that you can on the Xbox One even. But there might be a collection of games that you can play on Game Pass for Nintendo fairly soon, within the next few years. Again, the phone, the PC, even some of these, higher end TVs coming out, or the Steam Deck, or other handheld computer type Steam Deck type things. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that was kind of the mood, was that we are still a console maker. We're still going to make consoles, but we're a game distributor first, I think is what he said. And I think he's mad about all of these game things happening, because if they're going to be a game distributor first,
you need good games.
And if they don't have good games, then it kind of fucks everything. Yeah.
Like at the core of this, games is at the core. No matter what they do, games is at the core, and they haven't brought it. But I will say one thing that I thought, which I think is a smart move, that I've known they've been doing this for a while, which is why I don't really knock Xbox really at all, and I haven't for some time, especially since I've been on the other side of that being knocked down when I had a PS3, so I don't want to reciprocate that, because that sucked. Like, I literally had people in high school throw shit at me because I had a PlayStation. I'm not even fucking joking you. Console wars were real, people, okay? What I think what he's been doubling down for a while now is he realized the Xbox lost the race a long time ago. Long time ago, like years ago. But what he doubled down on, what he talked about was, he basically said that they lost the race, and so they're doing their own thing. They have their own strategy, and that's what they're going to focus on, and that is bringing the best games that they can to their audience, right? Trying to give you David, specifically you, the games that you want, like the good games. They're making you happy you have an Xbox Series X, right?
Yeah.
So
or just happy I have Game Pass.
Or Game Pass. So what I liked him, they're focused on doing things that they want, their own way, and not worrying about the console race so much, but just worrying about bringing games to their audience. That seems to be their first priority, and I think that is the smart move to make, especially right now, because you don't have
to fulfill that.
Yeah, which is what they need to do. But here's the thing: I keep saying this too, and I didn't know it was gonna take this long, and probably because of the COVID. But they bought all these studios, and I think starting 2019 or 2020, and I told everybody, I was like, so many people need to watch out. You give this 2-3 years, and Xbox is going to be fucking slinging exclusives left and right. Now, it's been a little longer than that, But I still hold firm on that belief because we haven't heard much from a lot of the devs that they bought. And they bought like, what, 10, 11
Yeah.
people? You know? I mean, only one we really know about is Hellblade. You know, that's about it. Beyond the givens, you know, the Forzas and then you know, your Halo's, Gears, and whatever. Like beyond the ones that we know, or like the regular ones, Hellblade seems like the only one that we kind of know anything about that will be a first part. Oh, it's Starfield, but whatever. But all the others we haven't heard peeps from. But when they're ready to, when oh boy, like when that shit, when those fruits finally come to bloom, it's gonna be a day of reckoning. I still hold firm on that, and I want that. I absolutely want that because that will force Sony to realize that Xbox can bring it, and they're gonna have to bring it back again, like when we were like in the golden age of PlayStation from like 2017, like 2020. It was just like every 2 months was another banger, bro. It was insane. I didn't play any of the games, but you know, it was just nuts. So you know, I appreciate him doubling down and not crumbling under the pressure, not trying to worry about them losing the race and what PlayStation people say and them dominating the market at the moment. He's not caring about all that. He's just like, you know what? We're going to focus on our own problems and worry about our own problems and fix our own problems so we can help, so we can just give the gamers, our Xbox loyalists and faithful, you know, a reason, you know, a happy reason, or make them happy that they have their Xbox of choice and keep that momentum going. Like, and I think what he should have said about Starfield is like, it's not so much about being a system seller, it's more about finally giving Xbox owners a reason to have their Xbox. That's, I think, is the better argument to make.
Or even just have, you know, have a win. You know, have a game that
Or
is.
you want to get that sad about it, just having a W finally.
Yeah, like, okay, so like Hi-Fi Rush was a good game, but it wasn't. It was a good game without expectation, and it was a good game for its scope. But they need a game that had expectation, that was at least not face flopped on, that has wide appeal, where Hi-Fi Rush, you know, went off, but it's still a niche type of game.
Yeah, it's like a music rhythm game. That's always going to be a bit niche.
Yeah, I mean, it was great, but they need a game that is a traditional wide appeal game that does well, that it should have done well, and it was expected to do well. And then that will breathe confidence back into Microsoft Studios coming out with games. I don't think that if Redfall would have done well, you know, and you add that on Hi-Fi Rush, and maybe you get another game out that maybe hasn't come out. Like if things have gone more to their plan, I don't think you have people worried. And I think that if Starfield comes out and is, you know, reviews in the high, you know, mid to high 8s, people will, this whole conversation of is GameStop that's another company. is Xbox done, you know?
Yeah, or are they dying? Or
are they dying? I think that totally turns it around, and then all of a sudden now we're going to be looking forward to Avowed and Hellblade and, you know, whatever else, you know, the studios.
Well, there's the showcase in June, so we're going to find out some more. But you
again,
know,
like that's again, I don't know, and it'll be interesting to see what we see in the showcase. But again, we saw Redfall, and we thought Redfall looked cool, but then it sucked. I don't think that necessarily seeing anything's going to change anything. I think that it might even just give more fire to say, hey, these are all games that are going to suck when they come out, or we're going to be disappointed in at least a couple of these. They need a game to come out and be a good game, and that's what's going to get confidence back to the industry.
I think this needed. Yeah, I think I always like it when a dev or a publisher doesn't say like much at all, you know, PR wise or whatever, and all they do is just fucking bust out bangers. Like they don't need to say shit. They're almost like a mafia boss. Like they don't need to say nothing. They just do shit, and it's just a banger, you know. Like during that golden era, like I said with PlayStation, I can't remember too many articles with Jim Ryan or whoever was in charge. It was just like we don't need to say shit, bro. It's like just every 3-4 months, it's just another fucking 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 game. It was just nonstop. Nintendo sometimes does that too, you know, with the first party shit. I do like the approach of Xbox were to take this of kind of not necessarily minimal marketing per se, but minimal PR, right? Not too much talk, you know, show enough every so often, and make sure the shit that you're showing is very high quality, and then just leave it at that, and then bust out the game, and then.
And what he also touched on is he said a couple times of games being played in PC and not being said that they're playing in PC, you know, on PC. Mm-hmm. And we talked about that, about transparency in general for companies. And I feel like he was touching on that. I feel like, I hope that after he touched on that there is less, that there is more transparency, that at the very least, if they are showing a game, you know, gameplay or cinematics or whatever, they say, hey, this is on PC. But I would hope that they have more games running on the consoles, you know.
Yeah, we want to see it Xbox Series X or something, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like running on Series X, not running on PC.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I will say just real quick, going back to what you said about you feeling Phil was frustrated about possible higher ups, right? I actually put a note in early on about, because he was, you know, they've talked about Redfall pretty early on, and I kind of wrote, like, my note was suspect of company meddling, you know, like with Redfall, like, because, you know, it's so hard to look at that game, because I remember that game was a bit more lively when we first saw it years ago, but then when we finally got the finished product, it was very mundane and boring and kind of like a lot of other co-op shooters, you know. And so I think,
and he also said the internal testing showed it 2 points higher.
That's
so
what
like, I'm sure he's frustrated about that, and like, hey, how the hell did our internal testing get it so wrong? Well, like, who did we use? Like, let's never use them again. You know, like, what build did we use? What were they playing on? Like, how much of the game did they play? So if their internal testing showed it of that much difference, then they need to change the way they do it. Either the company they use, maybe it's how long they give the person to play it, maybe it's, you know, maybe whatever their internal testing they give a very curated section to, maybe stop doing that shit and like have it more wide open, so their expectation is better. Because he was really frustrated. He sounded really frustrated about that their internal testing showed that it was going to be a success, and then it wasn't.
Yeah,
and he felt like it was pie in his face.
Yeah, he did
because of that.
But he took it on the chin, though. I'll give him that. He took it on the chin. I was going to touch on that. Following up was about, you know, about the internal, which I thought I was like, holy shit, he's like kind of peeling the curtain back a little bit. I mean, it's not I was blown away that they would do internal tests, but I just didn't think about that, right? Like, they actually have a set up mock reviews and shit like that to gauge how it might do commercial, you know, when it's out in the wild. You know, talk about it. I was like, oh wow, he's really kind of telling us how it is behind the scenes. And yeah, speaking on like that point difference between their mocks and the actual, again, I think that kind of goes back to what you said about, you know, things are out of his control. But what he said, though, I forget exactly what he said, but he, based on the reviews, he was saying, like, you know, what we noticed was that, like, it wasn't too much different than what company averages are, or like industry averages or something like that. But a comment said, I happened to read the comics, I was curious, I was like wondering, oh gosh, it's just gonna be full of Sony fanboys shitting on this or not. It wasn't, but one person did, so he quoted that bit and he was like, that reasoning is why we don't get good games, because they just look at that standard, and if that standard is shit, but they were like, well, we hit the standard, like that's why it's not good. And I think that's not something Phil wants. I think that's something higher ups that make more money than he does in Medina decide for him. And that could lead to his frustration that you could visibly see on his face when we talked about that part particularly, because he probably doesn't have control over that.
It's like if I came home, you know, and I went to college, took a test, and I got a 70 on it, And then I looked at the class average, and the class average was 68, and be like, hey, I did great,
But it's
but
like, did you though?
but did you though? Like, you didn't. Like,
No. And
that's not good.
yeah, I mean, maybe you felt like this before in school or whatever. Like you get some kind of assessment, you get it back, and like, you might try to reason with you, try to make yourself feel a little bit better because yeah, you were the average, but like, how do you personally feel about that, right? Like, is that up to your standards? Like, screw what the consensus is. What matters is how you feel and what you are used to. And if you're used to getting 90s, then even the average doesn't cut it for you.
Oh, again, and we'll end it here shortly. But for an example, I've been doing this teacher certification, and what was frustrating for us doing this teacher certification is that we were given practice like material and tests for it, and we would do that, and we were scoring really well. Like, we were like getting 90s and stuff like that, and we were doing really well. Then we took the actual test, and no one in my entire class scored higher than a 74. So we went from taking practice tests that were supposed to prepare us for the test, and we were getting 90s, and then we take the real test and we get a 74. And the fact is that what we were being prepared for or with was not what we were actually taking.
Yeah, so it's like, luckily you figured out what the problem was, but like, I know what the analogy you're trying to make though about the mock reviews to the actuals is like, they don't know.
It's frustrating.
They don't seem to know what the issue is, but they realize that they have to change something because that should be as accurate a representation as you can get to the real life situation. And if it was like a smaller discrepancy, okay, yeah, it just wasn't good. But when it is a more noticeable discrepancy, it's like, what went wrong here? Like, something's wrong. And I mean, and back to the averages, you can again use our country as a you're a teacher. You can use our country as a standard, the US country that is. Like, part of the reason why I imagine part of the reason why our people love to make fun of the US for being dumb and lower test average scores. I imagine part of it because we allow our averages to be much lower than I imagine a lot of other countries' averages are. Like, I'm sure you're not a teacher yet, but like my sister is, and she talks about how like they're not allowed to fail students in her grade school. Yeah. And it's like, that's unacceptable. If a kid hasn't figured it out, they got to figure it out, and just pushing them forward isn't going to help.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother podcast. But
it is. But the point is the averages, like that's why it's not good.
And it's what is the gauge of success? So at that direct comparison, the gauge of success for schools, because of the gauge of success of the government, is pass rate, is graduation rate. That's what the government says. Hey, you need X amount of graduation rate to get federal funding. Yeah. So the government might say, but don't cut any corners. Wink, but wink. Then it gets down, but then it gets down to this, and to the next person is like, hey, we need this, and then and then it gets diluted down to where it gets to the teachers, and they're like, yeah, we can't fail anyone
as long as you don't get in trouble. Do what you got to do.
Yeah. So it might be the same thing of the expectation is just wrong. Like the gauge of success is wrong.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure Phil's people are talking about that too. I'm sure they're smart guys and ladies. I'm sure that they have talked about. I'm sure they haven't talked all the fucking time. But yeah, so that's our full thing. Again, this is a call to action. Implore you, people, do try to read in and look into stuff that you see. Like, I feel kind of bad that we talked about it without having watched it first, because I did kind of feel like we were almost speculating, and I do not like to speculate on this podcast. So I do apologize for that, but I'm happy we watched it. It was a good 40 minutes of my time. I felt I was talking to another guy who's also a Sony dude, and I said, bro, you should listen to this podcast. It's a very good podcast. Like, it was very good. Like, and we need more of this from everybody. I want this podcast for whoever the fuck's in charge of Deep Silver or Volition that did Saints Row. I want to have that guy or lady do a very like exact same type of podcast. It just get fucking grilled so he can talk candidly. What the fuck happened? What went wrong? Like, I want to hear it. I want to hear it. Like, we need more of this because honestly, I think it builds sympathy. I think it builds really good sympathy, a really good relatability, and as long as you own up to the mistakes and you don't act like a dick or like a little cocky prick, I think people will walk away from something like that being like, all right, I kind of like. The game still sucks, but I respect you.
To close it all out. None of this matters.
Nothing matters.
None of this matters unless they get some good games out. Like, we can give Phil all the props in the world, but if they put out another stinker, then it's gonna get rougher.
If Starfield is a stinker, man,
yeah,
man. If it sucks, they need to get Activision at that point. Like, if Starfield blows, they need to have Activision then. They have to. They have to.
Anyway, guys, let us know what you thought. Definitely go watch the interview. But tell us what you guys think of what we were talking about my 3D chess. That's still
4D, 5D.
It's looking better and better. It's looking better and better, man.
It's closer to bingo every day. Every podcast, something happens. He's like, bro, I'm telling you. I'm telling you, man, you're going to wake up one day, Xbox Game Pass will be on your PlayStation 5. I promise you. Then you'll find it on your phone. Then you'll find it on your fridge. Exactly. It'll be in your headphones. It'll be everywhere. You won't escape it. You will not be in your brain. Just telepathically play Forza. It's just in your head.
Yep.
Well, guys, like David said, comment below how you felt about it. I'll link it again. I forgot to. Why? It's linked on the last one, but I forgot to do it when I published it. I'll hopefully remember to do it when I publish it this time. But I'll put it in. It'll eventually be there in the description so you can watch it. Please take some time to watch it. And again, people, don't speculate on shit. Read the full thing. Don't be stupid, okay? Don't be misinformed. Go to school. All right, y'all. We'll see you guys on the next week's one. Take care. Goodbye.
See ya.